the asshole for refusing to be my sister's bridesmaid because she chose, quote, ugly friends to make herself look better? I have to tell you something, and I didn't know how to spit it out. I thought this was a bit effed up of her to say when she asked me to be her maid of honor. Am I the asshole for not inviting my dad's partner to my micro wedding dinner? BO, hacks for your big day. You can't sit there listening to this right now and think, oh yeah, I would never do that. No, a lot of people would choose this option. I don't know if this is controversial, but I agree with the last one I just read. Welcome to Wedding Wednesday, the podcast that's about to spill all the tea on what it's like to plan a wedding from the bride's perspective and all the details no one talks about. I'm creating the podcast I need to keep me sane and feeling less alone as I plan my own wedding. We're diving deep into the hilarious, messy, and sometimes crazy world of wedding planning and wedding horror stories. Get ready to laugh, cry, and maybe feel a little less alone in this wedding planning madness. Hello. Welcome back to Wedding Wednesday. My name is Adriana, and today's episode, I'm actually going to do a Maid of Dishonor Q&A. I had some questions in regards to my Maid of Dishonor story. If you haven't heard that story, go back to episode 1 of the pod, and you'll be able to hear all of the story of how I became the Maid of Dishonor. So we're doing a Q&A with that. I'm actually going to dive into some BO hacks. That's right. You know you get stinky on your wedding day, and there are some hacks apparently that we can leverage in order to avoid any smells. And lastly, we're going to dive into some amazing horror stories like always. So with that, let's dive into our show. So Maid of Dishonor Q&A. I had a few people in my personal life ask me some questions or like come up to me and say, I listened to your first episode. It was so good, but I have so many questions. So I wrote them all down. There's about 8 of them. And I thought we could go one by one and I can answer. So here's number 1. How did you explain this to Antoine and what was his reaction? So quick backstory. I became the Maid of Dishonor because my best friend who asked me at the time to be her maid of honor ended up not liking my fiance, Antoine, who's now my fiance by the time I was my boyfriend. So when I found out that she didn't like Antoine, this person wants to know, how did I explain this to Antoine? I was on the phone and in my bedroom and he was in the living room and I was like shaking after getting off the phone and finding out this information. So I just opened the bedroom door and looked at him and said like, I have to tell you something. And I didn't know how to spit it out, but I just spit it out. And I literally just said like, I just found out Claire, let's call her Claire, back to that, doesn't like you and doesn't want you at her wedding. And I just said it kind of like that. And he kind of looked like he was taken aback a bit and he kind of went like, oh, that's weird. Like, where is this coming from? Because Antoine and I had been together up until this point about like 5-6 years, like something like that. And so I explained it like literally plain and simple. And his reaction was a bit shocked and weirded out, but like it wasn't like a huge reaction, which is probably good. Like I think it's a good thing that he didn't have this like massive overreaction to how she didn't dislike him. And I think honestly it stems from the fact that like we weren't that close with her. Like I was close with her, but he wasn't that close with her particularly. So I think that's why his reaction was more tame, but that's how I explained it to him. And that was his reaction. And I think as it started to settle, like as the shock kind of started to wear off and as the weeks went on, he kind of turned to me and was like a bit like WTF, like I never did anything to her. I never gave her any reason not to like me. You know, sometimes you meet people and you just like don't jive with them. I think it was one of those situations. And so he was like a bit offended. And I think his ego might've been a little bit hurt that she didn't want him at her wedding, especially because typically everybody likes Antoine. So like his reaction kind of developed into a WTF situation and like kind of like I was like more than happy to like give her a gift, even if I wasn't going to be at her wedding. So I don't understand where this came from, but ultimately he had an amazing reaction considering like someone flat out said like, I don't like you. So there's that. Question 2, did you ever find out why she had strong feelings about inviting him or even having him at your table? So she had strong feelings about not having him at the honor table because she didn't like him. And like from her perspective, it was her wedding. She didn't want to have to share her honor table with somebody that she doesn't like. It's a reasonable thing to think. That being said, it's really hard to control like who your friends choose to be as their life partner. So it's also like offensive to me that she wouldn't want my life partner to be there with me on her big day to support me as the person who's supporting her, you know? But in terms of like the strong feelings about that, that's where that came from. Like, that's why she didn't want him at the honor table. Like, she didn't like him ultimately. Did I ever find out why she had strong feelings about inviting him to begin with? Yeah, like there's something that I think as I was talking to her back in the day, when Antoine and I started dating, we were trying to navigate a situation back then. And I think she didn't like how he navigated that situation. And because of that, it just left her, I think I'm speculating. I don't have like I don't have validation on this, but like, I think it left her a bad taste in her mouth about Antoine, and it tainted her opinion. And even though he didn't do anything wrong, he really didn't. And like, this is a situation that like him and I talked about with my family, my friends. There was nothing to be concerned about in regards to that situation. It was just a situation we were navigating at that time. But she, for some reason, took that and ran with it and deemed him as somebody that she didn't like. And I think that's where all this came from at the end of the day. Like that thing that happened that I had discussed with her back then, she didn't like. And then ultimately that turned into, she didn't like Antoine, and that turned into, I don't like him, so I don't want him at my wedding. It kind of like plain and simple. I think that's what ended up happening here. And that's why she had like such strong feelings about inviting him to begin with. And unfortunately, like as her friend at the time, like I can't control how she feels, right? I can only hope that she would support me, and she didn't want to. And I guess it is what it is with that. Like we ended up like parting ways because of that, and there's nothing I could do about it. So question 3, how close to the wedding was this? There's a lot of questions in this question 3. How close to the wedding was this? This was over a year, or around a year before her wedding. So it wasn't drastically close to the wedding. And thank God, like now as a bride to be myself, if I was having animosity with one of my friends who was in my bridal party close to my wedding, it would really suck. Like it would really suck. So I'm actually glad for her sake, honestly, that all this crap happened like well before the wedding. So the next question was, did you have your dress already? No, I didn't even have, like, she didn't even have her dress at this point. Like it was really early on to her wedding planning process that all this unfolded. The reason why it was so early is because when she decided to like book her wedding date, that's literally the wedding date that she chose, like with her venue, is what triggered all of this to unfold. So because she chose that date, we had kind of like this fight early on in her wedding planning process. Because when you plan a wedding, the first thing that you're looking at is what date you're going to choose and what venue you're going to choose on what day. So I didn't have the chance to get my dress, thankfully. And then this person asked, sorry, was there a bachelorette or was it being planned? So again, it was super early on that like I wasn't even involved. We weren't even at that point yet where we were talking about bridesmaids dresses, maid of honor dresses, bachelorette plans, bridal shower plans. So thankfully, all this happened well before all that. And like she hopefully, like, I still care about her even though we're not friends anymore. I hope that she ended up having a beautiful wedding planning journey and wedding planning year and wedding. Like without any animosity, because when you have turmoil and animosity with your friends or your family during such a special time in your life, it taints the situation. So I hope that she had a good experience in the end. I saw some pictures from her bachelorette. She looked like she had a great time. And the other girls who were in her bridal party were still there and, seemed to support her. And so it looks like all in all, it ended well for her. Next question. Did she just find a new maid of honor? I have no clue if she ended up finding a maid of honor. I will say I thought this was a bit effed up of her to say when she asked me to be her maid of honor. I don't think I included this in like my story. There were so many details of this story that the story could have been like 2 hours long. But when she asked me to be her maid of honor and I said yes, she was like, she kind of said like, I'm so happy, and then like our other friend came into the conversation, Anna, who was like a bridesmaid at the time in her wedding for her wedding. And the three of us were just chatting, right? This was right after she asked me to be her maid of honor. And I had said yes. And I don't know how this came up, but the bride ended up saying, yeah, I was towing between you, my oldest friend, me, and my best friend. She has another friend who she's known as well for many, many years, just not as long as me. And she was towing between the two of us as to who to choose for her maid of honor. So she said that right after she asked me to be her maid of honor, which made me feel a little bit like, oh, like, I don't know if you chose me, like why you chose me, like out of convenience, out of like principle. Did you really want me to be your maid of honor at the end of the day? I don't know. But regardless, those feelings at the time, I kind of like pushed aside because I was like, whatever, she chose me and I'm happy to do it for her. But because she was towing between me and her best friend, I think in the end, she probably went back and asked her best friend to be her maid of honor. That being said, as her best friend, and her best friend thought she was going to be maid of honor too. She even told us that story. She thought when she asked her to be her bridesmaid that she was going to ask her to be her maid of honor. And her best friend was disappointed that she didn't ask her to be maid of honor. So I don't know if she went back and ended up asking her to be a maid of honor. As her best friend, I think I wouldn't feel super good being asked to be bridesmaid and then being asked to be maid of honor, because it makes you feel like you're the second choice. But maybe in the end, that's what she did. And her best friend was happy to do that for her because she wanted to anyway. But I don't know. All this to say, long-winded answer to, did she find a new maid of honor? I don't know, but I'm assuming she did. Yeah. Have you talked to her since / crossed paths with her since? Or if you would see her, how would you react? So have I talked to her since or crossed paths with her since? No. How would I react if I were to see her again? I think you can't predict a reaction to things like this. I don't know how I would react if I saw her like in the street. My gut instinct is I think I would say hi and say, how are you? You know, it's unfortunate how our friendship ended, but she was my friend for so long that like, I really do wish her nothing but the best. So, you know, if ever she texted me one day and said like, I would love to reconnect and like talk this through, I would be open to that. I actually really would be. But she'd have to support my fiance. And maybe she just doesn't want to, and like, therefore it's a deal breaker for her. What can I do? Had she not sent the "Are we still friends" text, what do you think you would have done, or what would have happened? This is a question that I was asking myself for a long time. Sometimes I'm a bit of a chicken. So like, I think I never would, I confronted her at tea, coffee, whatever, when we went for dinner, coffee, whatever. And we talked it through and she apologized and she moved her wedding date. So I was able to go to her wedding, and my fiance, I'm assuming by then, would have been invited. So because of that, and because I also have the value of like, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. It's like really a value I really it's something I really value, like sticking to my word. I think I would have done the whole maid of honor thing. And I think that I would have been there for her and I would have said nothing. And if we wouldn't have like worked through things, or I felt like she was trying to be more respectful towards me too, I think honestly, to be really transparent, I think I would have ghosted her after the wedding. And like, you can't sit there listening to this right now and think, oh yeah, I would never do that. No, a lot of people would choose this option too, because it's the one that doesn't ruffle the feathers. Like, I don't want to create more animosity, more crap. And I think I just would have distanced myself from her after the wedding, and it would have sucked for her because I would have been in all her pictures. And looking back on your pictures when you're not even friends with some people anymore in your pictures, like, it can be hurtful. So I think that's what would have happened. Honestly, I would have toughed it out. Because I was already feeling like, I know we talked this through, and I was trying to be like, get back to like that place where we're friends again. And I was like trying to get there again, and it wasn't happening that seamlessly, but I think I would have like pushed it to the side until the wedding, done my duty basically, and then protected my peace. And I think it would have created a lot of more crap just later on down the line. Because then I got engaged. By the time she got married, I was engaged. So if I wouldn't have invited her to my wedding, like what would have happened with that? Like it would have just created more crap later. I think it would have exploded later instead. And I'm just kind of glad that like she did send that text, and it did force me to confront those feelings and be honest with her, and to honestly part ways well before her wedding and well before mine. So it didn't create more crap closer to either one of our weddings. That's my honest answer to that. Would love to know what you would have done instead. I mean, in a perfect world, maybe like after 6 months of like feeling crappy, maybe I would have confronted her again and said like, I think I should step down. But truthfully, I don't think I would have. Anyways, that's why I say I'm a bit of a chicken. Next question. Were the other girls in the group bridesmaids? One of them was, not the others. Question 7. Because it created so much crap in the group, like in the end, none of us were bridesmaids or maid of honor. Was the bride kind of always like this personality-wise? I know we're shocked, but are we surprised? It's a great question. Was the bride kind of always like this personality-wise? Yes. So she's always had opinions about things that I didn't necessarily share, but just because she has different opinions about situations doesn't mean that we couldn't be friends, right? Our difference in opinions never affected our friendship until this. So yeah, she's always been a little bit like that. She's always been a little bit of a fighter. You know, I've watched her like fight for grades in school with teachers. Like if she felt like she was right, the teacher was wrong, like she was there defending her point until the end. So I'm not surprised in her reactions and how she's acting. But it was shocking because I had never experienced it myself in a situation with me. She had never been that way with me. I had seen her be that way before, but I never seen her be that way with me. So we're not surprised, but we are shocked. Yes. Last question about Maid of Dishonor. And if any other questions pop up throughout this, feel free to write them in the comments below and I'll answer them in a later Q&A. I want to know more about your mutual friends and how that played out. Okay, so this is difficult because our mutual friends, like I don't want to speak on their behalf, and they had their own experiences. But to give you a bit of context, all of us had felt, except for me up until this point, but for the previous 2-3 years of our friendship altogether, all of us had felt a little bit wronged by her at a different point in time. So all of us had, except me actually, up until this point, literally, all of us had a little bit of like an ick, if you will, about what she had done. But you know how sometimes your friends give you the ick for something, but like you kind of just get over it because it's your friend and you love them and you want to move on and it's not a big deal all the time. That's kind of what was happening here. So for about 2-3 years, she was kind of like doing things that we were overlooking. We were kind of thinking, oh, that's maybe not too good, but like, whatever, it's not a big deal. Like we can let it go. It's our friend. We love her at the end of the day. And then when she did the whole, like, I don't want to invite Antoine thing to my wedding, that's when like, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And we all looked at each other and we kind of just said like, this is really not okay. Like, screw this. We cannot continue this way. And then when she sent that text to me about, are we still friends? You know, that's where I kind of took the opportunity to say for myself, like, hey, this isn't going to work, basically. But before I had said that to her, the other girls had kind of said that to her too. So that's the most that I can really say about our mutual friends and how that played out. And unfortunately, like none of us speak to her now. And I say unfortunately because we invested so much time in a friendship that like ultimately didn't work out, and it's sad. It just is sad, you know? So that's my Q&A on Maid of Dishonor story. If you have any more questions, feel free to write it below. Okay, I want to get into some body odor, so BO, hacks for your big day. People were saying I stumbled upon this on Reddit. Okay, we freaking love Reddit, right? So I stumbled upon this on Reddit and I was like, I need to know the BO hacks because we all sweat and everybody smells sometimes. So what do we do to prevent that on the biggest day of our lives, right? So let me read you some of the suggestions here because they're really, really good. I know one of them, which is not in this thread, that I've seen is literally Botox in your armpits. I don't know why I just laughed at that, but people put Botox in their armpits for their wedding day because it blocks the glands from sweating. So if you're blocking the glands from sweating, the bacteria that's on your armpit cannot smell, basically. So that is an option for you. But if you're really afraid of needles and you don't like the idea of putting Botox in your armpits, there are other hacks for you. So let's read some. Someone said clinical grade deodorant. I was nervous about the same thing and it worked marvelously. So that's good to know. I don't know if clinical grade means you got to get a prescription for it. But that's something that I'll probably be exploring when I get closer to my wedding. Someone else said, of course, normal antiperspirant, but also full body deodorant in the nooks and crannies. Sweat likes to gather around pelvis, underboob, bellies. I refreshed after my ceremony and during the reception with a body wipe under the arms and the back of my neck and then reapplied deodorant. This is key. And your feet too. Like I've seen people put spray deodorant on their feet to avoid sweating, to avoid slipping around, and to avoid the smell, honestly. Smell is caused by bacteria. I used an antibacterial spray before I put on deodorant, and in a pinch, I've used hand sanitizer. Stings, but worth it sometimes. That could be a hack that you could try if that is something that you'd be interested in. Someone else said, my husband sweats to the point of sweating through suits on a regular day, so we did a lot of sweat prep. I saw some sweat wipes that you use the day before, and the next day you don't sweat in those areas. We had a very romantic night before the wedding, wiping each other's bodies with these wipes, face and all. P.S. We tried this months in advance as a test to make sure we didn't get any skin reactions. Day of, we used normal deodorant right after a shower. We showered with benzoyl peroxide every night for a week leading up to the wedding for our armpits. We both wore perfume. We had an emergency kit in the back room for an after dinner refresh. We had a fresh shirt, baby wipes, deodorant, spray deodorant for the rest of the body, and more perfume. Can you tell we were paranoid about sweating and BO? Ha ha ha. Life as people that sweat a lot and have sensitive sense of smell. This was actually a fantastic tip. I think you can get benzoyl peroxide at the pharmacy. You can definitely do that a week leading up to your wedding. You can test the wipes thing. Super, super good tip. Someone else said deodorant everywhere. If you're using a product you haven't used before, I also recommend using it for a while before the wedding too, to get your body used to that formula. Someone said, just shower and wear deodorant. Very genius. Someone else recommended Lume. They have Lume. They have a lotion that's a whole body antiperspirant. I use clinical regular deodorant. I'd use clinical regular deodorant and then use the Lume in all creases and crevices. It helps with feet odor, body odor, etc. Good to know. Those are all my tips. Those are all the Reddit tips on BO. So these are really, really good tips to remember for your wedding day. If you don't want to be too stinky, you know, on your wedding day, there's nothing worse than that. And especially when you're next to your guests, like you don't want to be walking by your guests and then you kind of have a bad smell. So that's good to know. All right, we have some juicy horror stories like always about weddings. This first one is an Am I the Asshole? So here we go. Am I the asshole for not inviting my dad's partner to my micro wedding dinner and for not reaching out to her first to explain why? Using a throwaway to not connect this to my main. My partner and I are getting married this summer, and we've decided to essentially elope. We're going to have a private ceremony, just the two of us, during our honeymoon. Not only does this align very much with who we are, so no one in our life is very surprised by this, but we're also doing it because, one, our families live scattered across the world, and a larger event would mean leaving a lot of people out, and two, we want to avoid drama. Everyone knows drama comes with weddings. However, what we do want to do is get dressed up, take photos, and have a dinner together with our immediate families. So essentially, a micro non-wedding celebration. This is where the issues start. So I told my parents I wanted to have this small event with just them, my partner, and my sister, not including their new partners. My parents went through a nasty divorce when I was in my teens, and for several reasons that I explained to them, I wanted an intimate event, just the five of us. My mom was fully supportive, saying she can understand why this would be so meaningful to me. My dad understood too, but he wanted me to be the one to break the news to his partner, 54 female. I didn't think I had to because it's not like I'm calling everyone single other than family members who aren't invited to explain this decision. But I said that if she wasn't upset, she's more than welcome to call me and we can talk about it. His partner is very sensitive and we've clashed a lot over the years because I don't think she's ever been fully willing to understand the nuances of coming into a family after a divorce. The relationship started shortly after the divorce, and she tried to parent both my sister and I, who were preteens at the time, from the get-go. But even though we're not close, I've done my best to otherwise be welcoming and kind. Well, now he's told her, and all hell has broken loose. She's completely beside herself, and he wants me to mitigate the issue and reach out. I've reiterated that she's free to call me if she can't possibly understand why this is about me and not her. And I can understand she's disappointed, but so is, I assume, everyone else. Am I the asshole for not inviting her and for not breaking the news to her and for refusing to be the first person to reach out here to solve this? I can kind of see my dad's point, who says I should be extra mindful of her since she is a sensitive person who has had a hard time accepting we're not very close and takes this personally. However, at the same time, I don't think I'm responsible for her feelings or for cleaning up this, quote, mess. I also believe in the idea of, quote, my wedding, my choice. What are people saying about this? There's like a follow-up on the thread here. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. Oh, so they think they might be the asshole. I decided to only invite my divorced parents and my sister to my micro wedding dinner and not their new partners because I wanted it to be essentially intimate. Yeah. Let's see what other people are saying. Your mom's partner isn't invited either. If dad's partner is taking such personal offense to something that obviously isn't actually about her, that's her problem, not yours. And saying that they expect you, assuming 20s or 30s, to be all grown up and talk to her, but can't expect a whole person in their 50s to grow up and respect other people's wishes. Someone else said, your dad needs to accept that as her partner, her volatile emotions are his to soothe and not yours. You made it clear that you're being kind enough to be available to chat with her about this, and she hasn't taken you up on that offer. At this point, she's being a drama queen just for effect. Congratulations, OP. May the rest of your journey together be easier than the launch. Someone said, dad knew she was going to be a problem, which is why he wanted OP to be the one to tell her, so he's not in the line of fire. True. Someone else says she's your dad's problem. Everyone's saying they agree that, like, she's not responsible for her feelings. Someone else says, it blows my mind how many people want others to come celebrate their relationships and marriage while totally ignoring and disrespecting their loved ones' marriage partnerships. This is the last one I'll read here. So you want your family to come celebrate your relationship while you pretend theirs don't exist? That is certainly a choice, I guess. Okay, I don't know if this is controversial, but I agree with the last one I just read. Oops. I think, like, it's not okay not to respect the partners of the people in your life. As somebody who's disrespected my partner, I don't want to, in response, disrespect other people's partners. And these are your parents' partners. We're not talking about, like, your best friend's new boyfriend. We're talking about your parents' partners. I don't think she's an asshole. Like, it is her wedding at the end of the day. But I don't see why she would. I don't actually fully understand why she doesn't include the partners of her parents. I don't think that would be a big deal unless those partners were explicitly mean to her. I don't think that's super appropriate. Now, her parents seem to be on board, and that's fine. And it is her wedding, so she is allowed to do what she wants. But I think that you have to expect other people to react the way that they're going to react. And it's not up to you to manage their reactions, but it's normal for people to have reactions. I think that's my take on it. Would love to hear your take on this story too. Am I the asshole for refusing to be my sister's bridesmaid because she chose, quote, ugly friends to make herself look better? Why do people do this? I was going to say, I can't believe people do this. No, but like I can. Terrible. Okay. My sister, 27 female, is getting married and asked me, 24 female, to be one of her bridesmaids. I was excited until I found out who the rest of the bridal party was. Every single one of them is someone she's either not that close to or has made fun of before for being, quote, awkward or, quote, not photogenic. Some of her actual best friends, the ones who she sees all the time, weren't even asked. It felt weird, so I asked her why she picked this group. She kind of laughed and said, quote, you'll understand when it's your wedding. You don't want people who'll outshine you in your own pictures. I just stared at her. I asked, quote, so you picked them because you think they'll make you look better? She rolled her eyes and said, it's not that deep. I just want to feel confident that day, and I'm allowed to be a little selfish for my wedding. That rubbed me the wrong way. I told her I didn't want to be part of a bridal party built on tearing other people down, even subtly, and that she should have picked people she actually cares about. Now she's calling me judgmental and sensitive, and her mom says I'm being, quote, too idealistic and should just support her. But I feel like going along with it makes me complicit. Am I the asshole? I don't think she's the asshole. That's my opinion. That's pretty... Well, first of all, this comes from a deep insecurity from the bride, and that is very sad to think about. Like, unfortunately, this bride feels so insecure about how she looks that she purposely chose people that she thinks don't look as good as her to be around her to make herself look better. I don't know why she did that. She also could have chosen no bridal party at all, maybe just a maid of honor, like nothing wrong with that. I don't know why she has to go put other people down subtly, as her sister says. But let's read some of the comments here. Some may disagree, but I don't do their family, so I must comply even with things I don't agree with because their family, it's their day. They're saying you're being judgmental, but they're literally making a judgment that anyone else would be the center of attention but the bride. Why would you want to feel self-conscious and ugly all day just to make your shallow, selfish sister feel better? Way to go on your sister's behalf. Talk about sucking all the joy and good wishes out of you on her big day. Somebody deleted a couple comments here, but this is a hard one. Somebody said, tell the other bridesmaids and then post an update. Gets popcorn ready. Would love that. Somebody else said, it's not that deep. Correct. It's incredibly shallow. I'm entitled to be selfish because it's my wedding. It's such a shitty mindset. 100% NTA. Not the asshole. Your sister is a very ugly person on the inside. Somebody else said, not the asshole. So she thinks you're uglier than her too. Ouch. That is actually ouch if that's the case. OP responded to that and said, she always has. It did get to me growing up. She has been conventionally attractive and never failed to rub it in my face that I supposedly am not. I don't feel bad about my body anymore. I like the way I look, but yes, that took a lot to deal with. Somebody else said, going along with it, knowing the real truth behind the motive would make you complicit. Tell her to get over herself. The big deal with fancy weddings is such medieval times BS that is mind fucked into young girls to spend money empowering the wedding conglomerates. That turned into a comment on capitalism, which fair enough. The more someone said, the more I read this sub, the more disappointed I am in the human race. Somebody responded to that and said, if it helps, a lot of it is AI or otherwise fake. Anyway, I don't think she's the asshole. I don't think her sister's the asshole. I think the bride's the asshole. But on a deeper level, like I just feel so bad for the bride that she feels so insecure about herself and in her body. Does that mean you should step down as bridesmaid? I can't answer that question. I don't know. Would you step down as bridesmaid? If this was your sister, this is your sister here. We're not talking about your friend. This is your sister. Talk about ruffling feathers. Don't you want to be there for your sister? Don't you want to see your sister get married? I don't know. This is a very difficult conversation to say your sister. Clearly she's emotionally a bit immature. So imagine telling your sister, I don't want to be your bridesmaid because all of your bridal party is uglier than you and you did that on purpose and I feel bad about myself. sometimes weddings like cause these crazy immoral or moral situations. I don't even know like what is the right term here, but it's hard to distinguish between the two. This is a hard one. Anyways, would love to know what you would do because I genuinely don't know what I would do if I was in that situation. Let's read one more before we close off for today. Bride tried to cut me out of the friend group over some aloe. All right, y'all, this happened a couple months ago, but it's still bothering me. I need Reddit honest feedback on if I'm the problem or not. My partner's best friend got married last year. It was a destination wedding in a country where no one speaks the language. For some context, the bride has had an issue with me before even meeting me 2 years ago. She's always been pretty controlling on group vacations, other vacations we took before the wedding occurred, and made it pretty clear her distaste for me. I believe part of this has come up because my partner is amazing and super easygoing, so is hers. Both men are very go with the flow type people, and the two of us tend to have more opinions on scheduling and order of events. It comes to a head when her and I disagree on how things should go, and I tend to be the one to cave in order to keep the peace. Back to my story. My partner was the officiant at their wedding. They planned to arrive at the venue about 30 minutes before the ceremony was supposed to start to get organized and double check everything was ready. I made it clear months before we went, I wanted to Uber with my partner to the venue as I did not know anyone else going to the wedding. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't traveling alone in a foreign country where I don't speak the language. She repeatedly tried to tell us we could not Uber together, that seeing me before her wedding would cause her unnecessary stress, etc. I made it clear I had no intention of stressing her out, that I would not be in the room with her getting ready. I would wait outside the venue at the shop nearby until all other guests arrived. I thought it was a reasonable compromise. We did not end up seeing each other until she was walking down the aisle, so I kept my side of the promise. Am I the asshole for thinking it was unreasonable to tell me I couldn't Uber with my partner? Accompanying this drama, her sister got extremely sunburned over the trip. I offered her some aloe to help with the burn, which the bride rejected on her sister's behalf because she, quote, she told her to put on sunscreen and now she gets to deal with the consequences of it. I said I did not mind whatsoever. I did not need it, and the sister clearly did. She responds with, quote, I would truly tell any adult this. She should have put on sunscreen, so I don't care that she's burnt, and she can deal with it since she didn't want to be responsible. I'm in a state of disbelief, so I guess I scoff at the situation, amazed at how controlling and mean this person is being towards her sister. I don't say anything though, just let the situation die, as we are in a group of her friends and did not want to argue with her. And the bride got super pissed at my reaction, like pissed enough she decided both her and her husband were done spending time around me and have tried to cut me out of the group of 4. Am I in the wrong here at all? Girl, you are not in the wrong. That's according to me. But we weren't there, so it's hard to say. Let's see what people are saying really quick. Somebody said, no, you're not. She's weird. Support your partner as much as possible. Keep your distance from her. Also, I thought like your compromise of like you Ubering with your partner and like you waiting outside so you don't stress her out, I think was great. I mean, what's wrong with that? I think that's perfect. Someone else said, all I can say is your partner better not ever be around her without you. He needs to show his loyalty and leave any time she shows up to anything. That's a bit extreme. Like, yes, I believe in you should support your partner, but in a situation where you need to support your partner, not in a situation where somebody just walks into the room, you know? Someone else said, nope, girl sounds nuts. She won't let you help her sister. What's wrong with this woman? Totally agree. If you have any crazy horror stories that you'd like us to share here on Wedding Wednesday, feel free to email it at hello@weddingwednesdaypod.com. Please rate, review, subscribe, do all the things because it really does help our podcast grow. And with that, I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.